Hello viewers, and welcome to another video, and this is a bit of a different one. On Wednesday the 14th of May 2025, I flew with FlyPelican from the Gold Coast to Newcastle on the British Aerospace Jetstream 32, and I thought I'd give my honest thoughts and opinions on the airline, their service, if it's worth a higher price, and whether or not I recommend them. FlyPelican is an Australian regional airline based at Newcastle Airport, which is 173 kilometres north-northeast of Sydney. They operate a fleet of 5 British Aerospace Jetstream 32s on a number of routes throughout regional New South Wales. Pelican began operations in 2014 after being formed by the former staff of Pelican, which was a surviving member of the Ansett Group. In February 2025, Pelican announced that they would start 4 weekly morning flights between Newcastle and the Gold Coast, starting in late March, and they compete with Jetstar's daily nighttime service. I arrived at Gold Coast Airport just before 8 AM and waited until 8 to check in, as check-in for FlyPelican opens 60 minutes before departure, and at that point the aircraft had only just taken off from Newcastle due to fog. When checking in for Pelican, I wasn't really surprised to see that I had to go up to the counter to be checked in. This wasn't really an issue for me. I then went through security, which was a breeze, as it was after the early morning rush, and took my mum to check out Gold Coast's new terminal expansion. This was finished in late 2022 and features 4 jet bridges and was made for international flights, even though the only year-round non-Australian airline we get is Air New Zealand. Afterwards, we went up to the other end of the terminal to Gate 5, which is the gate that Pelican uses, and it's the northernmost gate at Gold Coast Airport. It was slightly bittersweet using Gate 5, as the last time I had gone through this gate was for Bonz's inaugural Gold Coast flight back in November 2023. About 45 minutes behind schedule, the aircraft landed and 14 passengers got off. Considering the Jetstream 32 is a 19-seater, this was a good load. Soon after they got off, boarding was called and I made my way to the gate, where there was one other passenger. The check-in agent was also the gate agent for the flight and walked us out to the aircraft, and we waited under cover while the aircraft was being refueled. Once one of the refuelers gave the thumbs up, we could make our way to the aircraft. Just before getting on the aircraft, there were 2 eskies in which one had bottled water and what looked like biscuits in the other. The aircraft was VH-OTQ, a 33-year-old British Aerospace Jetstream 32. I boarded and made my way to my seat, which was 5A. Now, an important note, I was originally booked in 1A. However, due to there being only 2 passengers on board, for weight and balance reasons, the airline had to move us accordingly. Anyway, the view from 5A was pretty good. The aircraft is configured in a 1-2 configuration, with 1 seat on the left-hand side of the cabin and 2 on the right. After a short wait, the captain came out of the cockpit and gave us a safety demo. In Australia, for every 36 passengers, 1 flight attendant is needed. As the Jetstream is a 19-seater, it does not require a flight attendant to be on board. After the safety demo, the first officer boarded and closed the door and joined the captain, and they started the engines. I'll now cut to a clip of the number 1 engine starting. After the engines were started, we quickly taxied out to runway 14 at Gold Coast Airport using taxiways Alpha and Charlie. At 44 minutes past 9, we entered runway 14 and took off for Newcastle. Please enjoy this unedited footage of the takeoff. After takeoff, we followed the Apagi 5 SID out of the Gold Coast and climbed up to 16,000 feet, which was our cruising altitude for the flight. In the way of in-flight entertainment, there's not much. Your best bet would be to bring a book to read on the flight, as the aircraft has no Wi-Fi, but if you're like me, you can look into the cockpit and watch the flight crew. From 5A, I got a good view of the centre of the instrument panel and the centre pedestal. Or, you could look out the window, which I did for most of the flight. Just as we were passing over the Barrington Tops National Park in New South Wales, we started descending. Here is a video of the flight descending through the clouds. And finally, at 3 minutes past 11, we touched down on Newcastle's runway 12. Enjoy this unedited footage of the landing. So what are my thoughts about FlyPelican? Firstly, the almost private charter style service was excellent. It felt very personal, from being led out to the aircraft, the captain himself giving us a safety demonstration, and being led to the arrivals area at Newcastle Airport by the first officer. The experience was fantastic. Secondly, it was definitely exciting flying on such a small airliner. Previously, the smallest airliner I'd flown on was a Jetco Australia Embraer 135 10 years ago. The sound the turboprop engines made was fantastic, However, it was a tad vibrating, which may annoy some, but that wasn't an issue to me. And finally, the cost. I paid $245 Australian for this flight, with a little bit more for insurance, which was the lowest fare. Whereas Jetstar charges $59 for its lowest fare for an evening flight. The Pelican flight does include a seat and checked baggage. So if you would prefer to spend less money, have the experience that a low-cost airline gives you, and get to Newcastle in an hour, pick Jetstar. But if you want to spend more money for a more private and personal experience, if you don't really care if it takes another half an hour, then pick Pelican. I will definitely be choosing them again in the future. I will now rate this flight out of 25. For check-in, boarding and deplaning, it's 5 out of 5. The flight crew were fantastic, so 5 out of 5. In-flight services, do make sure to pick up some food from the Eskies before boarding or get something out of the terminal. That was a 3 out of 5. In-flight entertainment for me was 5 out of 5. And Wi-Fi, there's no Wi-Fi, so that doesn't count. So out of a possible 20, Pelican scores 18, which is 90%. I'd like to thank you all for watching this video, and definitely let me know if you want more trip reports in the future. Thank you all, and goodbye.